Welcome to Clockin Talks podcast, and today we have a very special guest with us. Allison, how are you?
I am very well, thank you. Great to be here.
Thanks a lot for coming too. So, let's start and tell me a little bit about your journey, how you went into coaching, what was your, goals and all before joining.
Mm. Well, I started my career as a teacher,
Okay.
taught for a couple of years, but then went overseas. Many New Zealanders, you know, like to travel.
Yeah.
Um, and by the way, I'm a change coach. So at present, I work with a lot of women going through change, and often that is midlife, and that's 40 to 60 years of age area. Um, and change involving, starting to question whether the career they're in is the right thing, perhaps some relationship change, whether it's a divorce or separation. Sometimes it's about loss in life, whether it's a relationship or they're being made redundant, lost their job. And sometimes it's just that question people are asking, what am I doing now?
Yeah.
I'm not totally happy. What do I need? What's going on?
Yeah.
Mm. So yeah, I started my career as a teacher and went overseas, and then got into human resources, got into recruitment in London, and came back and got into human resources, and I was in HR for like 14 years. And so that was a great grounding of working with people, often talking about their jobs, what next, where the careers were headed. I got involved with doing personality type, Myers-Briggs I use a lot in my work as well. And so that was really great foundation, and worked in large organisations like New Zealand Post and a transport company. But then I started to feel that this wasn't quite me. And this was in my late 30s, mid to late 30s. And I realized I didn't really like the corporate
Yeah.
structure. It can be quite overwhelming and daunting and quite antagonistic at times, and I'm a sensitive being, and
Mm.
I think I've grown to be a bit tougher, if that's not quite the right word, but a bit stronger is a better word. But in my younger years, dealing with people was a lot more difficult. Um, and then I found this article in a magazine about coaching,
Yeah.
and I thought, that's me. And this is over 20 years ago. This is
Okay.
really, or 25, really early days of coaching.
Yeah.
And so I started investigating it, and then started doing some study. I went to San Diego and did some study, and then studied with Australian women as well. So began my journey. And I was lucky enough in human resources, I was able to go part-time while I set up my own business.
Okay. So now you doing coaching full time?
Full-time, yes. Mhm.
Okay, that's nice. So when you started like 20, 25 years back, so you did coaching offline only at that time?
Client only.
Okay, okay. Got it, got it.
Um, as in, I did, I started as a career and life coach because I thought, well, my
Okay.
expertise was in HR. I worked a lot with career, worked a lot with recruiters. So I was able to talk to them because they'd get people who were like, I don't know what to do. And of course, recruiters want people who do know the job they want. So I worked with recruiters who could then send me those people who didn't know the job they wanted. Then once we'd created a pathway forward for the clients, then I could send them back the recruiters and say, look, this is the kind of job you need to be looking for them.
All right. So tell me one thing I'm curious to know about why you choose just working with women who want to, figure out their life. Basically, why just females?
Mm. Look, I used to work with a lot more men, and in fact, the last few years I've noticed men are coming through more. Certainly, if I have a male come and wants to work with me, absolutely love working with them.
Yeah.
But I guess it's because through my own experience, um, working in corporates, my own experience, my own doubts, my own fears as a woman, that I feel that I can relate
Yeah.
a lot better.
That's great. So over the period of like 20, 25 years you are in this niche. So what are your key learnings in this niche and what have you realized that you didn't know before that in overall, like not just in coaching niche, in like life you explored something through this, talking with different people.
Oh, that's a big question.
You can take your time.
Um, so if we start with coaching, what have I learned that uh, that yeah, everyone is different, but also the same.
Yeah,
Fundamentally, people want to be loved, they want to be liked. So underneath the angst, anxieties, wonderings, often there's a need for connection and being loved. You
yeah,
know, I very much, although I have a process in coaching, I very much start where the client is. What do they need, and then change my focus depending on that. Because it needs to be driven by them
yeah.
largely. But my role then is to dig below and see what perhaps they don't know that they do
Mhm.
need.
Yeah,
In terms of life, oh, well, I feel like, part of my story is feeling like I was born asking the question, who am I?
yeah,
And what am I here for? And so I think, I wasn't confident when I was younger, teenager, and lots of fears, lots of anxieties. People wouldn't know that, they saw this and thought I was confident. And I was very good at
yeah,
putting on a mask, you know, um, and so I went, and it particularly came through with my work. I think that's where I questioned a lot. I wanted fulfilling work, but where did I find them? Who was I? How was I going to find that? And so I went to a number of career advisors myself.
okay.
Um, but I think underneath that, of course, you can see why I'm a life coach.
Yeah, that's great.
um, Underneath that, what were fears and doubts, and I had to, and through counselling as well as coaching, I've been able to grow myself, push through fears and doubts, and yeah. So I guess you asked the question about learnings. Um, One of the big ones is about acting. I was going to say acting first, but it's before that. It's the small tasks.
Yeah,
I did this podcast because I thought I've never done a podcast, and I know previously I've been emailed about podcasts. I thought, oh no, not really. So I thought, right, it's time for me to push
yeah,
through
yeah,
and take one small step.
yeah,
And you're not local,
yeah,
you're I don't know where you sit. So I thought, right, here's an opportunity, one
yeah,
more step to do this.
yeah,
So that is, a big thing for all my work. It's just one small step. If you're too scared to take that chunk, then take it right down to this small piece. But the important thing is to act
yeah,
and not wait for the feeling like you want to do it.
yeah,
Um, that'll come later, but it's to act first. Yeah.
yeah. Thanks for your thoughtful words. I definitely, even I got a great learning that we should just act on the task rather than fearing and doubting ourselves again and again. The
Mm.
only thing that matters is taking the right action. Thanks for that.
Mm.
One thing I read on your website, it's mentioned in your story, like you are a sort of boss lady in your childhood and your since now. Tell me about that.
What did you say? A boss lady? What do you mean?
Like you have a little bit, there's a teacher or like boss who have a different like who it's not in a negative way, but you want like to lead people.
Right. Yes. Yes. And I think even as a child, I used to play at
Yeah,
teachers and wanted
yeah,
to be the teacher,
yeah,
at the front of the class. Yeah, I guess I am a very independent person. And yeah, even in my neighbourhood, I'm the coordinator for people getting together. We get together 2 or 3 times a year. We've got a local beach. We do beach cleanups. So I lead that. And I think, I'm not sure if lead is the right word, but I like actually connecting people. And I've had clients who are perhaps having a bit of a trouble in building relationships. And I think, I know, I'm going to connect them with this person. I know they'll get on.
yeah,
And I've connected them and they do, and they're
yeah.
friendly now.
Okay,
So I think, yeah, it's about bringing people together is actually a big part of who I am.
yeah, that's really great. Tell me one more thing, like most of our viewers must be working in corporate and might be stuck there. So, like you transition from corporate life to now, you are now
Mm.
independent coach now. So, what was the one click that in your corporate, like when you thought that now corporate life is over, now I want to explore and work as a coach. So, what was that
Mm.
one click?
Um, my experience or advising others?
Both. I want to.
Oh, okay. Um, yeah, I think it was for me, it was finding there was something just not quite right. It wasn't satisfying in my corporate work. And I think it was because it was a big group. You're
Mhm.
dealing with, sure, advising managers, but then they would go and do the work really.
Yeah,
That was, what HR people do. And I realized I actually preferred working one on one or small group with people. So I
yeah.
can really connect, communicate directly to support, mentor, and advise.
Okay, okay.
Um, it's lovely talking like this because it renews, it reminds me
Yeah,
of what I do love to do.
yeah.
Um, and for people who are questioning their careers, I think the most important thing is don't leave your job yet. Because we know out there it can be hard to get a new job.
Yeah,
Um, but the first thing is to work out what is going to be the right next step. And so people can do some work for themselves. You could start writing down, now get a special journal and start writing down all the questions you have about your work. What do you enjoy? What do you not enjoy so much?
yeah,
Um, what annoys you? What makes you angry? Um, what are you not getting enough of? Or what do you need more of? Like,
yeah,
really do some research and gathering information for yourself
yeah,
and take the time to do that. Like, I'd suggest people, put it in your diary that each week you have 2 o'clock on a Thursday for 10 minutes. Doesn't need to be long, but just time to go within. You might want to go outside, sit on a bench in a park and just write and consider what's important to you. Because, I know in work it's often out there stuff, but we need to go back within and talk to ourselves and say, okay, where am I at here? What's in the way? What am I scared of? Um, and and of course, if I wasn't doing this, no. And then the next question is it that I want to stay in do I like the organization, or is it just my job I need to change within it,
yeah,
or is it the organization, or is it my leader that I really can't stand anymore
yeah,
and I need to find a way to get away from him or her? So, because sometimes it's like, oh no, I need to leave my job, I need to get away from here. But is it just that there's something that can shift that will really shift our attitude about our work?
Yeah.
Um, and of course, the bigger questions about, so I work a lot with teenagers as well, and some want to be lawyers, but they're really extroverted. Okay, great. But do you realize a lot of being a lawyer is actually head down, research, writing? And
Yeah.
sure, if you're a criminal lawyer, some of the time you're going to spend in court, but that's a way of communicating,
Yeah.
a different way. So it's looking at your own personality to see where does that fit better. I mean, I knew from a child, I guess, that or a teenager that people were my thing.
Yeah.
And my husband's an engineer.
Okay.
That's absolutely, maths and physics. I mean, I hear him listening sometimes. Oh my God, it's just that is not my mindset.
Yeah.
That's not how my mind works. So it's really figuring out. Sometimes, though, I know it's really subtle for teachers and nurses who want to get out of those traditional careers. Again, it's looking at the skills and being able to segue out.
Yeah.
For me, from teaching, recruitment was quite good because it was still people based. It was interviewing people. That was a good segue, but then I didn't like the
Yeah.
sales aspect.
Yeah.
But then I was able to segue into HR. So it's just finding that shift initially that would work.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So that was really nice. I really got some of the good insights. Like one of the best insight I've heard is like we should really journal our thoughts, like sitting in nature or at the beach. We should journal properly what we really want in our life, and that when we can realize what we need to continue in our future and what we want to do.
Yeah, but I think it's really important there aren't shoulds, you know, and journaling, could be seen. Yeah, journaling's really useful. And in fact, I was listening to Mark Manson yesterday, and he was talking about they had 19 self-help. They researched in depth 19 self-help areas. Gratitude was in the top 5,
Oh,
and you could have gratitude journaling. But I think the point was that we don't want to make it another to-do thing. We've enough to do in our lives, whether
yeah,
it's cleaning our teeth and every night and, whatever it is,
yeah,
getting to work, looking after the children, having another thing. So if it's something that you really want to do, absolutely. But if it becomes if it's a should, then don't do it. Just sit and think,
yeah,
you know. Yeah, we know research tells us that writing things down is fabulous.
yeah,
Research tells us that it helps that connection from here into the hand to writing really does help the process and create things. So, yeah, love journaling. I often get my clients to do it, particularly if they're stressed. Do it when you wake up in the morning or before you go to bed. But also something about gratitude as well.
yeah,
Might just every morning waking up, what am I grateful for today?
yeah,
Or in the evening. And look, I sometimes have to put stickers on my mirror. I'll remind myself because I forget to do these things.
yeah,
You know how you want to do things, but then you just forget. So, and to create a habit, you have to have reminders.
yeah,
And I think that's another thing about creating habits. And I can think of one of mine, which is flossing teeth. You know
yeah,
how the dentists tell us flossing is very good.
yeah,
I have a habit now, but it probably took me a couple of years, and I do it religiously every night. How did it become a habit?
Yeah.
it was connected with brushing my teeth. So that is an easy one, but it's a really good idea. Like if you're journaling, connect it with going to bed. Right, when I go to bed, this is what I do. Otherwise, you do forget,
Yeah.
or can forget. Um, and and then I just kept doing it. Sometimes I'd miss it, but also I knew in the back of my head, so my dentist was saying there was some expertise around it, that it's really good for my teeth, and I want to have good teeth when I'm old.
Yeah.
Um, so creating those habits is creating something to connect it to. So I'm perhaps going off topic, but journaling is one of
Yeah.
those
Got it.
things it requires a habit.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but do it if you want to. And I often hear people, and it's very common, people come in and out of it. Yep, they do it 3 months and they put it aside. They don't need to do it,
Yeah.
you know, and then they come back to it when they need it, when they need to start talking to themselves again.
Yeah. Yeah. Got it.
Mm.
One thing I must say, you are a really interesting person.
Oh, thank you.
So, like we are at the end of the podcast, so what's the last advice you want to give to others, and where my viewers can find you?
Thank you. Last advice. I think listening to that voice in you that's questioning. If we can do that, then if we start listening to it and being curious about it,
Yeah.
and then, that voice that's saying, I'm not sure I want to do this, or actually, I want to go tramping a mountain next weekend. I really do,
Yeah.
you know. If you can be curious about those, rather than pushing them aside in our busy world, you can find time to be curious. That will help so much in having enjoyment in life, because those curiosities or those questions,
Yeah.
I believe, is our intuition saying, hey, Allison, um, it's time for you to think about this. But often we push them aside. 10 years go by, and we're nowhere near the living life that we really want to be living.
Yeah. That's a great point.
And you can find me at allisonfisher.co.nz, Allison with two L's, Fisher, Fisher. That's my website.
Yeah. I'll put the
Mm.
website link in the YouTube description bio too. So, guys, this was all for the podcast. You can see her, you can book a free consultation with Allison anytime. So, see you in the next podcast. Thank you.